This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
And today we are going to be talking about the Netflix documentary, The Truth About Jussie Smollett. What do you want? You want to start with like a high picture, high level, 30,000 foot?
Yeah. I mean, I think my guess would be is, unless you've been living under a rock, my guess is you've heard of this case and have, been following it, whether it's a little bit or a lot. But, the truth about Jussie Smollett is basically the story of what happened that night, what the aftermath was. And in this documentary, Jussie, we get him. We get the two brothers. We get that claim that this was a fake attack. We get the police chief. We get everybody. We really do. And so I think that's what's interesting about this one is like, we're hearing all of these thoughts and feelings from the people. And so I think it gives you a good idea of, so what do you, so I think the documentary sort of leaves it to us. Like, what do you believe? Yeah. What do you believe?
Well, let's talk about a little bit about about Jussie. So, you said you didn't watch Empire.
No, I could never get into the show. I know people loved it. I knew who he was. I knew his sister. Like I had watched his sister's been in, I forgot her name. It's also a J name.
Oh, Journey.
Yeah. I'd seen her in some things. And so I knew who he was. And I knew he was openly gay. And he was on Empire. And that was kind of it. I didn't know much more.
Well, I watched Empire from day one. I absolutely loved the show. It was so cool. Like, this is let's see. When did Empire start? Empire started like, this happened in 2019.
Yeah. So I think it started 2016, 2017.
Yeah, somewhere around there. It was, it was kind of a groundbreaking show. I mean, when you think about it, it was, entirely Black cast, big names, Terrence Howard, Taraji P. Henson, Lee Daniels is the, director, I think executive producer.
Yeah.
And, the character of Jamal Lyon, who Jussie played, he was really, the first person of color, openly gay, cool, hip, hot character. He really was. This was not something that was typical. And so I can believe that he probably triggered a lot of people, and that's why I can believe this aspect, this, this hate crime part of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And he sang, he wrote music for the show. It was just a great show. And I think this whole thing kind of led to its downfall.
Yeah. Well, is it worth like doing a rewatch, or does it feel very dated? Because everything was so cool. Like, was it all very much of that time?
I mean, I don't think it would be dated. I think that, you know, it has to do with, you know, the themes are kind of the same. You know, it's about a family, and it's about, you know, a lot of dysfunction, and, but you know, it's a good, I don't know, it's just a great show. I would recommend it.
I might have to check that out. Yeah.
To anybody. But, also, do you know that, Jussie was born in Santa Rosa?
Oh, well, I mean, I knew because the mom was part of the Black Panther party, and that's Oakland. So it doesn't surprise me that they're Northern California.
So his mom was, or is, I think she's still alive, half African-American and half Irish. And then his father is Jewish. And his father was not really in his life very much, it sounds like. But anyway, he's like one of 7 siblings, and they're all like child actors. And they ended up eventually moving to LA because, you know, all these kids were working. So, you know, he's an interesting person. I didn't know a lot of that before looking into this. But yeah, I really feel this show has so many of the themes about crime that we talk about people kind of rushing to judgment, and like, you know, very early on, like they get a narrative and they just look for things, the confirmation bias, and look for things. And then they insert like that superintendent of police. Oh, he was so annoying. Eddie. He kept inserting his own, well, what I would have done, or that's weird. Who does that? You know, and it's like a lot of people do stuff. I mean, human behavior, not everybody is going to react the same after being the victim of a crime. You know, period. People react in all kinds of different ways. And it was just infuriating the way they investigated this case. If something didn't like fit neatly into this box, it was suspicious, and whatever they wanted the truth to be, they would find some way to make that the truth.
Yeah. I mean, definitely Eddie, was it Johnson? Is he the superintendent?
Eddie Johnson.
Names. Eddie Johnson. Former superintendent.
Yeah, former.
Somebody got, you know, let go. But yeah, he was an interesting one because I kind of, you know, you're watching the documentary, and the documentary kind of takes you through the story. We'll get into it in a second, but it takes you into the story, and you are constantly kind of going back and forth of like, yeah, that is weird. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's this. Like they really take you through the ups and downs of how you feel. And I remember thinking at first when Eddie came on and he was talking about how Jussie handled the fact that he brought back the sandwich, and how did he handle the noose, and how did he do this and that. And I'm like, okay, I can see that point of view, but that doesn't make it the truth.
Right.
And so, And yeah, there was a lot of people that were doing the thing that we talk about all the time, which is that's not how I would do it. So therefore it's a lie. It's wrong. And I also think that Jussie, I think one thing about watching the documentary that was like, I can see how Jussie rubs people the wrong way. I can see how he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And I can see that. Because there is something about him that's a little, I can't explain it, but it's just, I think that he grew up in a different kind of world. I think that he's been an artist his whole life. He, you know, is in this acting family. I think, you know, very Northern California. I mean, I think that he's not your average person. So he is going to do and say and react to things differently than the average person in Chicago will.
Yeah. And also, you know, he's younger generation.
That's true too.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Which might help contribute to the rubbing the wrong way. I think he really rubbed this guy, Eddie Johnson, the wrong way. And obviously Eddie's black too. It has nothing to do with that. And then this detective, Melissa Staples.
Oh God, this woman, she is the first person on the thing. And she says, she's the former chief of detectives, Chicago police. She's like, this is the first and only time I will speak publicly about this case. And this is the last time I'm going to talk about it. And then you know what? Guess what? Melissa says, nothing of interest.
No,
we didn't even need her. So,
well, and what a shitty job she did. I mean, the way that this case was quote unquote investigated was awful. And it turns out that all of these people are corrupt in the end anyway. That's why Eddie gets fired. And yeah, God, there's just so much going on here. There's so many different factors. And I feel so badly for Jussie, because even if, tomorrow someone came out and confessed to doing this, because I don't think it was those brothers. I'll say that. I believe he was attacked by 2 white men. And if those white men ever come out and confess, how is his life has been, and his career has been ruined.
This is going to be the footnote.
Yeah. And something happens at the very end about race that is so interesting. But anyway, I thought this was a great documentary.
Yeah, it was very well done.
Because it exposes so many issues about race and criminal justice and all. It's really, really good. So let's get into it.
Yes. You want to start January 29th, 2019.
Okay. So, Jussie is arriving back to his home in Chicago. So Empire was shot in Chicago and he was living there. And that's another thing. They don't shoot a lot of TV shows in Chicago. So everyone knows who he is, know. Anyway, I don't know where he was coming from, but he flies in, he gets in very, very late at night. And his creative director, this guy, Frank Gatson, picks him up at the airport. He gets to his house. There's no food in the house. He's hungry. He goes out, and now they're calling it a polar vortex. It's extremely cold in Chicago, like 20 below zero or something. Nobody's really outside. Although, that one lady did take her dogs out to go to the bath. There were some people out.
Yeah.
So he goes to the Walgreens, and he thought it was open 24 hours. It's not. He goes across the street to, I guess, a 24-hour Subway. And even though it was a polar vortex, there were still 4 other people in the store.
Yeah. People are getting sandwiches.
People need to eat, He's hungry. And so he gets a sandwich. He leaves. The phone rings. He starts talking on the phone. And then he hears someone yell, aren't you that Empire, expletive. And he turns around and one of them says, this is MAGA country. And I remember when this story first came out, they were saying that one of the 2, it's 2 men who are confronting him. And they were saying that one of them was wearing a red MAGA hat. I don't recall them saying anything about it in this documentary. But anyway, one of them punches him, and then he punches back, and they start fighting, but it's 2 against 1. He's down on the ground, and they're wearing like those ski masks with the eyes.
Balaclava. Yeah.
Yeah. With the eyes cut out. And he said he could see the eyes and the skin around the eyes. And it was of a, Caucasian, light skin, pale person. And, then all of a sudden they just take off and leave. And he picked up his sandwich.
Because he's still got to eat.
He's still got to eat. And, Eddie seemed to think that was suspicious that he brought the sandwich back with him.
That the sandwich was in perfect condition. Like, yeah, if you're going to go have a hate crime, you're definitely going to stomp on the sandwich.
Right. The sandwich escaped, he probably dropped the sandwich. It probably flung way over, there. And he walks past it, picks it up. So he goes back to his apartment, and Frank is still there. And you see the footage of him walking into his building. so he lives in this very Tony building, and there's cameras everywhere. There's cameras everywhere anyway.
Yeah.
Although this altercation was not caught on any camera, but the suspects, like walking past, the scene and to the scene, whatever, they did catch that. And I have to say that when you look at the bodies, just the build and just the way that they were walking and they carried themselves, those suspects on the video looked very different from those two brothers.
Yes.
They said it was because these two brothers are very distinctive. They're like bodybuilders.
They're big. Yeah.
Big. They have very good posture. You know what I mean? Like they're very, they would not move the way these people were moving. It is just, in my opinion. So you see Jussie walking in his building, and he's got like this rope wrapped around his body and his neck and his upper body. And so Frank is really disturbed by that. He tells him what happened. He's very disturbed by this. And so Frank decides to call the police. They show the police body cam footage. They come in, and it makes it look like when they came in, Jussie still had the rope around him. But he explains later, no, I took it off, but then I put it back on to show the police how they had put it on or something like that.
And Eddie uses that as like, oh, he's using it like a prop. And I'm like, yeah, because the kid, actors have a kind of a strange job. I mean, and actors are quirky. They are not your average bear. And I've spent a lot of time with them because their job requires them to access things that most of us don't have to access. So that whole thing, and then Eddie gets into this whole thing about I have family in the deep South from Alabama, the way a noose around your neck would, no Black person would want that around their neck. And I'm thinking, but this he's an actor from California. Like
he's reenacting what happened. Yeah,
he's kind of like doing his job, and that's when Eddie was starting to lose me. I was like, come on, Eddie, not everything can be through your perspective.
Well, exactly. That's what this whole thing is. And with the detective, with everybody, projection. I wouldn't have done that. People don't do that. If this happened to you, you would do this. I mean, it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
And that was throughout the whole show. So anyway, news started to get out about this, that he was the victim of a hate crime. And there was all this public support, like all these celebrities are tweeting, saying, we're with you, and Cardi B was making videos about it. And even President Trump.
Yes, he was very upset by this.
He said it was horrible and it doesn't get any worse than that.
It doesn't.
I was like, oh my God, Donald Trump had a moment of clarity there.
Or did he? I mean,
I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone is just outraged and incensed about this. And, it was national news for days and weeks. And it came out during the reporting of this that, I don't know, a week or so before that, he had gotten a threatening letter where someone, I think it was maybe sent to Fox, because they were Empire was on Fox. And it was this threatening letter with the newspaper or magazine letters all cut out, glued
old
on.
School Zodiac killer.
Exactly. And again, it repeats these same. It says that you will die. Expletive. And there was a stick figure drawing with a noose around the neck. So again, either he planned that or there really was someone coming, had a plan. They had a plan. They had the noose thing. This was already thought up. But, everyone, his assistant, they interview his former assistant, and they have this criminal justice reporter who gives commentary in the documentary. And they seem to have information that, Fox dealt with it. They didn't think it came from him, or,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was kind of vague about that.
But he was also, that was the other thing too, that Jussie in his personal life, public life, he was very outspoken about BLM, about talking about his mom being in the Black Panthers. He was very outspoken with the issues. And if we
marginalized
communities, if we all rewind to 2019, pre-COVID, it was, things were not good, as they have been like this for a while now. But there was a lot of anger. There was a lot of frustration. And so I don't know. It doesn't surprise me that he's getting hate mail, at all.
No, he was, you're right. Because, and his character on Empire they were very similar. Like he personally was similar to, because his character on Empire, even though he came from this family where, being gay was not cool, especially like with his father. And so he lived the character lived his life out loud and didn't hide who he was proud of and Jussie was the same way. So there was some parallels there. And I think that was triggering to a lot of people. And this is before George Floyd. This is before Black Lives Matter. So,
no. This was Black Lives Matter, because we had already been seeing, well, actually, sorry. Are you associating Black Lives Matter with George Floyd, or when it really took off?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when they were having all the marches and the protests during COVID. And it had been around.
We had been building and building and building.
Right.
But it was these isolated moments.
Yeah. And especially with the noose, which, this journalist was said, we're lynchings coming back, she says. It's like, that puts like all Black people on notice that, this news, the noose was the most disturbing part of it.
So they pulled footage from the street, and everyone has cameras now. And so this is the part I'm a little confused about. So they pull all of this footage. They see two men being dropped off by a cab. They get in touch with the cab company. The cab company says that they picked them up from a ride share. So they went from a ride share into a cab, and then to get dropped off there. And then what was I going to say? Then they figured out where the men ended up. And then they figured out who took that ride share. And that's how they found one of the brothers. So are we now saying that something was incorrect? Because the cab, are we saying that they got the wrong cab? That's what I'm so confused about.
I don't know. That part was confusing and not really explained very well. I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was they got into a cab and then got out of the cab, and then midway through their trip, and then they took an Uber.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't understand that part. And in between, they walked for a while, and they walked to a house or something that was close to
where one of them lived.
Yeah. I thought it was close to where Jussie lived.
No, it was close to where one of the brothers lived, but they never see them go into the house. So I will say, this is the one part that I struggle with, which is they traced it back to these two brothers it was Ola. He took the ride share that night. And so let's say totally innocent. They got into a cab, hated the cab driver, got an Uber, whatever, they get dropped off. It's very odd that the two of them are in that neighborhood at that time of night and that they have this connection to Jussie. That's the part I don't get. So are we saying that so how do you explain that? Like, is that just random? So we're talking about, and they also said there were no other cabs. This is one cab. So it's a little bit like this is the part I struggle with, is how do we explain the fact that these two guys that you have a relationship with and know are in your neighborhood at that time, and they're tied to the one cab and one car that's around there.
Well, they're tied to the car. They're not tied to the cab because that's not traceable. When you get in a cab, they don't have your information. But you can trace, who ordered that Uber, and it was one of the brothers. So how did they make the leap to? Well, see, that's the thing. They're assuming that. So, okay, the suspects, the film of the two. So they have film of two suspects who they think are the suspects who just did this. And they have them like basically at some points running, at some points walking away from where this crime occurred. Okay. But they, again, and I was saying that they didn't really seem to carry themselves the way these brothers did.
Yes.
Okay. So those two suspects got in a cab. Okay. So then when they get out of the cab, the police act like those two people are the same people who then get into that Uber. How do they know that? There is no footage of that. They have made that conclusion. They are connecting the two people who got out of the cab to whoever ordered that Uber. But how do you get there? How do you get from point A to point B? It's an assumption.
Yeah. And I think that this was, the part where, whether you believe Jussie or not, if he is innocent, if he truly is completely innocent, which I'm leaning towards, that is just, wow, crappy luck. That these two brothers that are connected to you in some way, shape, or form call an Uber on the same night.
Yeah, but by that point, they're calling an Uber from near their house, which makes sense.
Yeah, that part makes sense. And maybe someone else could clear this up for us. I thought they started out in the Uber took them to the cab. But I think maybe you're right that they hopped into the cab. They called that cab company because they didn't see them getting dropped off, right? It was all based on them leaving, getting into that cab, and they traced the cab down. And the other thing too is, again, they don't explain to us, because what they're saying is they're showing us like the route that the car took, and they're basing that on all of the camera footage that they're getting along these businesses, right? So, but how do you know it's the same cab every time? Do you know what I mean? Like, I would like to hear a little bit like, we verified the license plate at this point, then we verified the license plate at this point. Like, tell me how you know that to be true.
Yes, there is nothing that forensically connects any of this.
And we do hear about that. Yes.
So when the men who were in the cab at some point got out of the cab, we have no footage of that. We have no evidence of that. Okay. This is their theory. Okay. And so those two men could have gotten out of the cab and then walked home. Okay. Maybe they live close by, or they went, someone else picked them up. Who knows? They got out of there. Okay. Then the brothers are right at their home, like right outside their home, right? They call an Uber, and the Uber takes them to somewhere, and then the police just jump to the Uber, took them to the taxi. I don't know. There's literally nothing forensic here that proves anything. And that little graphic they put up where they show, okay, the cab's going this way, and then they show the two dots. Okay, here's the two guys, and that's just all made up in my mind. They didn't. There's no evidence of that.
Well, I think the thing is that essentially you're tracing two people. Again, there's no footage that they did it. It's all very, very circumstantial. We don't know.
And the police are filling in the blanks. Wherever there's a blank, they fill it in with what best suits their narrative that they have already they've already decided. Yeah. This is their case.
Because we meet a reporter, I didn't take his name down, but we meet this reporter and he says that he calls, so he wants to investigate. And he says he calls the public info officer with the police department. And this guy says, he basically reveals, this police officer reveals, well, this is a bunch of bullshit. And the reporter's like, wait, can I report that? And he's like, well, no, you need to report that we're taking this very seriously, but we're skeptical. It's like, See, that to me, I feel like you can't do that. Like, you're already asserting an opinion.
Right.
You're already asserting an opinion, and you're the PR person.
Same day. Yes. This is within hours of this being reported. And then within hours and days of this happening, like Rahm Emanuel, who's the mayor of Chicago at the time, he's putting pressure on the police department to catch someone because, there's a light shining on the Chicago Police Department because of so much corruption.
Yes.
Okay. And so here's this hate crime that's happening. They're trying to revamp the city's reputation here. And then they're putting a lot of pressure on Kim Foxx, who's the prosecutor in Chicago. And it's just like everyone is just rushed to judgment. Like it's just we have to find someone. We have to pin this on someone. And we have to do it fast.
Yeah.
And that's when they came up with this stupid theory we were just talking about that we can't even explain with the cab and the Uber. And so they find out that these two brothers, these Nigerian brothers, they had both at one point worked as extras on the set of Empire. And one of the brothers actually was Jussie's trainer. And so he did know them.
Yeah.
But I just think that, and here's another part. This is really bad luck for them.
For the brothers.
Because the brothers get, based on this shoddy theory, they get arrested.
I know. I wanted to talk about that too, about that whole situation, because basically you have this theory and then the boys go to Nigeria the minute they get back. So they're not running from anything. The minute they get back, they're arrested and put in prison, like in a jail cell, these tiny little cells. I'm sorry, but what have all you know is they took an Uber. Can you arrest someone just because they took a fucking Uber?
I know.
That makes no sense to me.
Yeah. And again, no forensic connection between their Uber ride and this hate crime. None whatsoever. All that stuff is made up. All the in-between stuff is just a theory.
I do want to, before we get into this, I do want to talk a little bit, because this is one of the things that Eddie Johnson got upset about, was that Jussie didn't want to give over his phone. And listen,
I wouldn't either.
And listen, no one wants to give over the phone. I'm with Jussie on this. Like that, we all have text messages. We all have things. We don't want someone poking around our phone. And they were so incensed that he was saying no. And this was the other part of it too, is again, he's an actor. Not a lot of Jussie kind of gets his way. I'm sorry. Jussie called his manager at 3:00 in the morning, and the manager picked up. His creative director picked him up at 1:45 in the morning.
Yeah. Like, he's a movie star, TV star.
You got to understand something about these actors is when you get to this level, it's this weird place where you have a lot of power, and at the same time, you are constantly trying to keep it. Hence why I do believe I think he was using drugs. I think he was smoking weed and doing this and doing that. I think he probably was wanting some illegal steroids. I think that's very common. Again, that's the strength. That is, Jussie has lived in a different kind of world. He has been living in a different kind of world, in a world in which you get your way.
He also has he has like Lee Daniels' phone number in there. Oprah's probably in there.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I kind of feel like, well, the police have to protect those phone numbers. They can't give out Oprah's phone number, can they?
These are corrupt people.
I know they're corrupt, but I'm just saying, like, I that didn't feel like a good excuse to me. To me, I felt like it was this very rush to be like, no, I'm not giving you my phone. Like that sort of, there's a bit of entitlement. And at that moment in time, Jussie did not see himself as someone that should be examined. He was the victim. He says, I'm the victim. So I also understand between those two things, making you say no to the phone. They eventually got the records. It's not like he never, you knew where you get the phone. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, and going back to the police, and their terrible policing, or the detectives, I wrote down this quote. I think this was from the head detective woman. She said, there was only one Uber in that area that night. And it was the brothers. And she says, they must be the suspects.
Mm-hmm.
What? And we don't even know that the other one was in the car. If they were, it was in Ola's name. Could have been in there with someone else. Anyway, this is just like, it's just a joke.
What we see this interview, like 2 weeks after the attack, we see this interview with Jussie and Robin Roberts. So I never watched this interview when it ran, but Robin Roberts was picked because she's a woman of color and she's part of the LGBTQIA community. And, this was interesting because the way Jussie talks about the attack, one thing I thought was interesting, and he does say something about this, which is this whole thing was very embarrassing. It was very emasculating. And he does say, he makes sure that people know, well, this guy took a swing at me and then I swung back at him. Like he wanted people to know that he fought back. He wanted people to know, he really gets into this whole thing about like, for little gay boys everywhere, I want you to know that I fought back. And again, I can see how a lot of that might rub people the wrong way.
It sounds a little contrived.
And I think the other part of it too is he's not being the perfect victim. He's not giving, the perfect victim would do everything that Eddie thinks the perfect victim should do, basically, Eddie and Melissa. But at the same time, again, he's thinking about protecting himself, his reputation, his livelihood. He doesn't want to be seen a certain way. Anyway.
Well, and also I think this is a question I had. If Jussie planned all this is a hoax, don't you think he would have been sure to get it on tape, on videotape? Because
and why wouldn't you hire white people? That was my other thing. The only thought I had was like, did he really know these guys really, really well and really trusted them? And he had been like, it sounds like he had been scoring weed from them, maybe some other drugs. I think they hung out. I think they got high together. I think they probably did other drugs together. I think they partied together a little bit. But why hire these two guys? Psych Legal Pop. We'll be back after these messages.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Hannah Burner from Giggly Squad. Have you ever put on a bra that makes you feel like a goddess? Prepare to be obsessed with the Dream Angels Wicked Bra from Victoria's Secret, the iconic brand behind the world's most comfortable bras. And I only wear the most comfortable bras. The bestseller features an innovative sling for perfect lift without padding, and the fit is chef's kiss. Awaken your inner goddess with new colors and super femme lace embroidery. Find out why this bra has thousands of 5-star reviews and counting. Shop it in stores and online at victoriasecret.com.
I don't know. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. If you're gonna carry this out, make sure that
Yeah, pick some white guys.
I don't know, but anyway, okay. Now this part, this is one of the funniest parts of this. None of this is really funny, but this lawyer. Okay,
oh God, Gloria Rodriguez. She is a piece of work.
The lawyer / Uber driver. She's with adult braces.
She's not an Uber driver. No. She was in an Uber that Ola, the brother's mom, was driving.
Oh, okay. I got that backwards. I thought she was the Uber driver. So she's in this Uber, and Ola and Bola, the brothers, their mom has a picture of them up in her car, and they're they have nice bodies, and she commented on it and how how handsome they were, or whatever. And she tells their mom, "Oh, if you or your sons ever need a lawyer," I guess she passed out her card or whatever. So their mom called her, and she dropped everything and went down to the
this is her moment in the sun.
Yeah, because they were not talking. They were not talking, and they could only hold them for like 48 hours. So they had nothing on them. And then they asked Jussie to come down and identify them. They show him the pictures, and he's just like, "What?" He's like, "I told you it was two white guys. And why are these people in custody?" He's like, "Yeah, I know these people." Yeah, I mean, he's just like, what is going on?
Yeah, but we meet the brothers. They sit down for the interview, and they talk about how they'd known him for like a year and a half. They were excited to be on the set. They very much, I can't remember if this is Ola or Bola that said this, which is he was very happy. I wasn't just an extra. I was friends with this celebrity. I was friends with him. And that's why I think they I think they could get drugs, and I think they partied. And I think that's Jussie would call them up when he wanted to party. I don't think they were close in that way, but they really saw this relationship very differently than he did. And again, I don't know. I don't know what was done. I don't know what did you think of the brothers?
I think they're wackadoo. And I just think, I think they saw this as a chance to get attention, because they say, "Oh yeah, he asked us to do this. He said, I want you to beat me up." And, so they're buying into this, but only after they learn like the story do they say this, because they wouldn't. And I think they orchestrated this thing with Gloria, because they figured out a way to get out of this by shifting it back on Jussie, so they could get out of custody.
Because did Gloria say that she wasn't supposed to sneak a phone in, but she snuck a phone into the jail to show the brothers Jussie's interview.
The interview.
And that got them angry, and the brothers got pissed. And then they decided to flip on him. Like, that's the story they're telling us. But it is possible. I do not trust Gloria at all. No. She is very shifty.
She's very super shifty. And also, I think they saw it as an opportunity to get out of custody.
Yes.
Because they're just like, okay, we'll just say that he hired us to do this. And, and they said because he wanted attention. He wanted, and he wasn't happy with, how much he was getting paid or whatever. They just came up with some story so they could get out of jail and put the attention back on them. And, I'm sure they thought it would lead to them getting on TV or something.
But we learned this later on. There's a very big reason why they wanted to cut a deal. They had, one of them had a really big reason to. It wasn't just attention. They were saving their asses.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, then we meet Tina Glandian, who works at Garagos and Garagos.
Yes. She was his criminal defense attorney when they eventually filed charges against him. And so, she's the one who, starts bringing up, the corruption and the lying and the Chicago Police Department. And I can't remember. So they do a deal where...
Are you talking about the brothers?
No, I'm talking about Jussie.
Oh, yes.
So Kim Fox, the prosecutor, cuts a deal that she would drop the charges, and he would just have to forfeit his $10,000 bond. And so of course, he went for that. It was a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was that. But people were still, they were pissed about it.
Yeah.
And so then Rahm Emanuel, he appoints a special prosecutor, because a lot of people were critical of Kim Foxx, saying that, she was very upfront about how she wasn't interested in locking up a bunch of people for stupid stuff. Chicago had bigger problems.
Mm-hmm.
And, but no, Rahm Emanuel wanted, a pound of flesh. So he gets a special prosecutor who files a new indictment, which, of course brings up all these issues of double jeopardy. Like, hello, no one thought of this. And then it just gets out of control, because it's like 5 felony charges for all kinds of stuff. Not just filing a false police report, which was the first charge. And so in Chicago, they called this like Chicago's OJ trial. It was a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And
it started in 2021. So we then meet some witnesses we hadn't heard about before, that the media was not reporting at all, because I had never heard about these 2 witnesses until today.
These independent witnesses.
The first one is this guy, Anthony Moore, who's a security guard at the Sheraton. And he's, it's 2:00 in the morning. He's doing his rounds. He says, I remember it well because it was so cold. It was hard to forget. And he says that I walked out. I saw, I guess he heard some footsteps. He shone his flashlight light, which I guess apparently I was watching something the other day. There's police officers. That's a terrible thing to do, to shine your light, like, because people can find you. But anyway, he says, he saw a man in a ski mask. He could see around the eyes that this was a white man. This was white skin around his eyes. And I saw him running from the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and then we have another witness, who's this woman, Rebecca Bell, who lives in the same building as Jussie. And she, at 12:45, has to take her boys out, which that means her dogs. And she said, and this one, I absolutely was like, I'm with this woman 150%. Because what she says, she saw a white man in his 30s with a beanie. So no mask, but with a beanie outside. And she said, I was very focused on him. I looked at him a lot because, again, she said, like, she's a woman alone in the middle of the night with really no one's out there. You are hyper fixated on where's that guy going? Is he walking near me? What is he doing? Is he staring? You know what I mean? I'm sure been there a million times. Like, you have to be hyper focused on, and I don't think that woman had 2 giant Rottweilers. I mean, I think these were tiny dogs. I don't think they were going to say, like, so she was, so I believe that she really probably got a really good look on this guy. And I believe she would know if he was white or black. And she's insisting he's white, and that he had what she believed to be rope tucked into his back pocket.
Yeah, hanging out of his back pocket.
Yeah. So Jussie thought, well, people are going to hear this and I'll be exonerated. But no, he was found guilty on all 5 charges. Was it only 5 charges? Found guilty on 5 charges. The judge really, really chastised him.
That judge is a dick.
I know. And I also have a problem with these judges that make these big comments. It's like, most of the time, I think they're guilty and all of that. But, do you really need to lecture them right before they get their punishment? They're going to suffer enough. Like, let it go.
Well, he knew TV cameras were on him. He's like, this is my big... But he couldn't be bothered to wash his hair. He had this greasy, like long greasy hair. He was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jussie got 30 months probation. The first 150 days were to be spent at Cook County Jail, $120,000 in restitution, and then I guess a fine of $25,000, which is the max. And Jussie proclaims in court that he's innocent, and he yells, I'm not suicidal, which I think I understand. He was doing that because he didn't want them putting him naked in a cell, which is what they do when they claim you're quote unquote suicidal.
Or like when you get like Jeffrey Epstein, where you get killed in prison.
Yeah, when a news shows up,
claim it's suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he thought something could happen to him in jail, which I don't disagree with. And then this is where we go to London and we meet some people, this documentary producer, and then we go to Maine and we meet a journalist. And these two women started researching the case, and they both felt like there was something off about it.
Yeah, they said, who would make up their own hate crime?
Yeah. Well, they both started digging, and what I think the woman in Maine, is it Shelley Stanley? She said, my dad grew up in Chicago, and there's been lots of issues with the police, and so she started getting all this evidence. And what I was wondering was, why didn't this come up in trial? Like, this is good. She found some good stuff, like the 38 detectives and supervisors that were involved in this case. Those 35 had a combined 563 misconduct allegations filed against them. So you really have to think about that. So for the 563 incidents, they're about 2,000, because that's because that's a quarter of, at the very least. And again, you are always, in any job that you have, someone is going to complain about you. Totally makes sense. You get like one. And I want to hear the explanation.
You learn your lesson.
Yeah, you get one or two in your life. But like, that is that means, I'm doing the math. That means like every single one of you have had at least a couple allegations. And the allegations are not like, this guy wasn't nice to me or they stopped me. It was selling drugs, sexual assault. The city had been sued 16 times and had paid out money 16 times every time for police misconduct.
$5 million.
Yeah, they did not, they were not an upstanding group.
No. And they were the ones who pointed out that there are no witnesses or forensics linking the brothers to the crime.
Yeah. Oh, and this was my favorite. This is my favorite. So Anthony Moore, the security guard, he gets brought into the police station, and they give him a lineup of pictures, and they give him all these pictures, and they say, "Okay, pick out the suspects." And he's like, "These are all black guys." He's like, "The guy I saw was white. I can't pick out any of them." And then they say to him, what he claims is, "Well, if you had to pick one,
God.
what would you pick?" And he's just like, "I'm picking like the lightest skin guy there. I don't know." But he said, "But it's still not them. Like this, I saw his face. He was a white man." That how do you get away with that? Like, that is so shady and so wrong.
Yeah. And these two independent witnesses both said, that this person they saw was a white guy in his 20s.
And then the other woman said 30s.
Okay.
But it could be, yeah.
Yeah. And then what was this? I wrote down 10 seconds missing from a video.
Yes. So they start requesting videos of just everything. They wanted the two women, I don't know if this was Shelley or Abigail, but they got video footage of Anthony Moore, the security guard, and we see him walking out of the building. We see him open up the door. And this was the moment in which Anthony shines his light that he says on the face of the person running, and it gets cut out.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit like, where's the 10 seconds? And they try to get the 10 seconds, but they could not get the 10 seconds.
Oh, I thought they did. I thought they got a video from the Freedom of Information Act, and it was a white guy.
Well, they end up getting this other video, which I think it's so weird. It's like all grainy and they couldn't see anything. Then all of a sudden they get this video where it's clear as day. It's like in color and it's this orange cab. And we see two guys walking. Now, they show that many times. I'm telling you, I don't know if it was a white guy or black guy. I mean, did you think it was white, that guy that we see?
Well, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Because, this is what happens towards the end here, is they show, they had somehow enhanced that picture and made it so that it was kind of easier to see the face of the person.
But I don't, that's what they said. They were saying that the footage was bad and grainy, and then all of a sudden it got really good. It wasn't like they enhanced it. I think someone was messing with it up until that point.
Oh,
that's how I
thought that they did something to it, because when it showed up, it looked like it was like almost like daylight.
Yeah, like the next day. It was weird. And I'm telling you, I don't know if that was a black guy or a white guy, but that wasn't one of the brothers. That guy was chubby and balding and was not a bodybuilder. That's the other part. I'm like, these are not the same two guys.
And even if in some of the pictures, one of the guys did look maybe like he was slightly like brown skinned, but these brothers are very dark skinned Nigerian men. So it's very different. And that's the fascinating thing about race. Like at the end of this, they show the pictures of the suspects to the security guard, to who else they showed it to?
They showed it to the other witness.
They showed it to the witnesses, and like they all had a different opinion. Like they said, black is white and white is black. You sort through information that agrees with what you already think.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was the same picture, and different people were saying different things. Some were saying, oh, that guy's white. Some were saying, it's like the dress where they couldn't figure out is that dress blue or is it yellow? Remember that whole thing?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is, and even the security guard guy who was insisting that was a white person that he saw, they showed him the other picture of the same suspect from a different camera.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh yeah, that's a black guy.
Yeah. So no one knows who these two guys are. Like, and some of them absolutely said those are the brothers. Other people were like, I don't think so. But
none of those pictures were those brothers.
Yeah.
Those brothers are so distinctive looking.
Yes.
In their face, body, everything. I mean, just the way they carry themselves.
Yeah. They don't blend into a crowd. They don't.
No.
And hence why they're bodybuilders. They're actors. They don't want to blend into a crowd. Guess what?
They're very athletic. Like the people on this video are kind of struggling to run away. You know, you can tell they're not like in the greatest shape. You know, they're so yeah.
Well, so there are, and we get into what was going on in Chicago at that time. I guess I don't know if this had happened in 2018 or earlier, but a boy by the name of Laquan McDonald was shot 16 times by a police officer, Jason Van Dyke. And apparently they were trying to, downplay it. And then the footage comes out. And I don't know exactly what was happening. This kid was like way on the other side of the street, running down the street. And this cop just gets out of his car and just starts shooting him. It's the craziest thing, 16 times.
And that was another case where there was suppressed, missing video that.
And this police officer, this police officer only got 6.5 years, which I'm sure pissed everybody off. So that's the thing. People in Chicago are mad. The people are not happy with the police. Why aren't you have two eyewitnesses that say something different? Why are you believing these two brothers over these eyewitnesses? And that's what bothers me. I'm like, why none of you are willing at all to like think for 1 second that that the brothers could be lying, that the eyewitnesses could be telling the truth. And usually eyewitnesses, you would think they have the least amount to lose. What we find out is, and this is the other thing that was so weird, is that the brothers, again, when they took the brothers into custody, we see them knocking down their door. And again, you just knock down their front door. They have done nothing. You don't know anything.
They have been charged. Yeah, they've been charged with anything.
And
how did they get a warrant for that?
Yeah, they get a warrant. And then also, why do you have to knock down the person's door? Why do you have to do that? You can't, the boys, if they have a roommate, they tell you, no one's in there. Why do you have to? I mean, it's this excessive need to like, okay. They find out that Ola is a convicted felon, that he was in 2011, that he was involved in an attempted murder that I guess got pled down to some kind of assault or battery or something like that. And that when they got to his house, they found tons of guns. Tons and tons and tons of guns. And I think that, this new theory comes about, which is Ola is going to be in deep, deep trouble. He's going back to prison because he's got all these guns he's not supposed to. And it looked, to me, it kind of felt like, Ola made Bola and him make up this story to keep him out of prison.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Bola was laughing in the interrogation. Like, he seemed that one guy, he seemed like, he laughed weirdly. Like, oh, the police say, well, we have not told you at all what to think or what to say or whatever it is. And he just goes, ha, ha, ha. It was the weirdest thing. It was like this kind of visceral reaction.
Yeah, he was a weirdo. They're both, I
don't think they're that
cons. And also their DNA, there was DNA on the rope, but it did not match either of them.
Yes. And so whose DNA is that? Have we ever processed that DNA at all?
Well, whoever's DNA it was is not in the system,
if they run
any database. Yeah, if they did. But they must have. They must have, because they said that it didn't belong to the brothers. Somebody did it. But you have to be in a database to be caught.
Yeah.
So, if there's no, if you're not in the system, then they can't find you.
But we never even hear about this. We hear about the DNA from the journalists. Like the police never tell us about the DNA. And so,
well, it could have. We don't know what evidence came out in the trial. We don't, because they don't cover that. They just say, okay, there was a second trial. He's convicted. We don't know what the evidence was. We don't know what the defense had. So we don't know. But that conviction was actually upheld on appeal, but then it went all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court, who they overturned the conviction because they said it was double jeopardy.
Yeah.
He bargained for that first. There was consideration for that first deal he took, where they dropped the charges and he forfeited the bond. So you can't then take the same facts and then charge him with, something more. You had those facts when you made that deal.
Yeah. Well, here's my question. So I'm very confused about the scene where we see Gloria inside one of these interview rooms with Ola, talking to him about expunged versus sealed records. I was so confused about that. Like, they're worried about, Ola's worried about his record. And is this part of the deal that they're making? I think confused.
So. I think she was helping to broker a deal for them. And so they lied, that she's extremely unethical.
Yeah.
And crazy. They made up this story and they made a deal. Because these stupid cops were so and they probably knew this was a bunch of bullshit, but they were so desperate to convict Jussie Smollett for some reason, because there was so much pressure on them. It's part corruption. Well, it's corruption all the way to the top because the pressure's coming from the top, from the mayor. And, they have to solve this crime. They have, and that's another thing we always see, like in these true crime cases where, the most important thing to them is not justice, it's solving cases and closing cases. And they just get hyper fixated on that. And that's all they care about. And they think that they'll get away with it because most of the time they do.
Yeah.
In most of these cases.
Yeah.
So, jeez.
Okay. Well, Eddie gets fired for misconduct because I guess he lied. He was drinking in a patrol car, but he lied about that. I feel like there's something more. Was there someone else with him in the car? And was it just alcohol? Do you know what I mean? There's a part of me that's like, there's got to be more to this story.
Yeah, I think his misconduct record is probably pretty long. And yeah, he'd been sitting in his car drinking for like 7 hours or something while he was on duty. But he's also the superintendent of, like, you've got a high up job. Why are you patrolling? Well, he was weird. I mean, I cuss a lot, but I wouldn't, if I was the superintendent of police, I wouldn't be cussing on a documentary interview. He's calling, he's got a real potty mouth, and he's just, what the fuck is this? What is this shit? And it's like, wow, you're professional.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's strange.
And I think there's also that other part of how people perceive Jussie, which is, while there's this love and admiration, I'm sure there's a lot of like, oh, he thinks he's so special, or he thinks this, or he thinks that, or he's uppity, or he's this, or he's that. And and I'm sure he carried himself. I'm sure he does. He does. He carries himself that way. He does. And
he's talented, and he knows it.
Yeah. So. He was not willing. He's not someone who's going to be self-deprecating and like anything. He's, I think this is what it, again, like to say, in order to get to this point in your career, you have to have insane confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
You have to believe
Absolutely.
On some level, on some other thing, that you can do this. If you don't, you won't make it. And so I think that's one piece. And I wish someone would have spoken to this about what it means to be an actor, what it means to be, in a show that is like number one, and how people perceive you, and everything is, misinterpreted. And that, when you jump, people say how high. There is a lot. I mean, don't forget. And I witnessed it very, very clearly. And I witnessed, people falling down that hill too, and they don't get the same respect. So I do hope, I think this is going to be this footnote. Jussie has always kept the story from this, unless someone comes out with new evidence. At this moment in time, I believe he's innocent. I think, unfortunately, this is going to be a footnote for the rest of his career. But I do believe that he also can move forward on this. Like, I think that he will come back doing something else. Like, this isn't the end for him. I think there's a way out. But I think it really sucks.
Yeah, I feel really, really badly for him. I mean, this is just,
yeah.
I don't know. But it's scary all around. It's scary how things could have gone very differently for those brothers. They could have gotten caught up. Like, if the police didn't want to use them the way that they use them to try to get to Jussie, then they could have ended up in prison. Well, they would have ended up in prison because, the gun stuff and all that. So, it worked out okay for them this time, but.
Well, and then the brothers do like a press tour, and they wrote a book. Now, I think it was hilarious. They showed the footage of the one brother who could not remember the name of the book. He could not retain it. So they kept showing it. Now, I would just like to say, I too have written a book, True You. And I will tell you, I often will screw up the second part, like the subtitle part. I too have been like, okay, what is it again? Okay, wait, it's a step-by-step guide to conquering, you're like, what's the word I use? Conquering your quarter-life crisis. Like, I will give it to this guy that he was, sometimes it can get confusing, but that to me made me believe, oh, these filmmakers don't believe you. Like, these filmmakers trying to make fun of you. Yeah. I think that if they thought of you differently, they wouldn't have shown us that footage.
Yeah.
And then that makes me wonder about Melissa, who we met in the beginning, who was so Miss Tough gal. Like, I'm going to tell you what the facts are. And it's like, you barely told us anything.
Yeah. You were complicit in this, like, made up theory of, a taxi and an Uber. And, oh, that's it. These are the people.
Yeah.
So.
Anywho, wow. I thought this was a really well done documentary. So we appreciate it when it's like tight, an hour and a half. Let's just get in. Let's say things.
Get the facts.
It would be nice to have. It would have been nice to have, some more facts. Some more facts of what was going on. The question. There were some things that were very confusing, but I think that when it comes to any of these cases, as we saw with the Karen Reed case, it is confusing. It is confusing, like, because all we are just making, we have these Ring cameras and all of these cameras, and it's like sometimes you can see the person, sometimes you can't. Like what this person sees, I think that's what's so complicated about this. But in some ways, I wonder with Karen Reed being vindicated, maybe people will look at this case differently because we saw police corruption at this level.
Yeah.
And I think that was the other part that a lot of people couldn't believe, myself included, is believing that, oh my God, an entire
Right.
department in a major city could be corrupt. And then you're like, oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah, they can be.
Yeah. Yeah. And then since this occurred, not just George Floyd, but there have been a lot of things where these kind of things, they're always happening, always have been happening, but they're getting more attention.
Yes.
They're getting more attention in the mainstream. And so, yeah, people aren't as willing to just accept these bullshit stories from the cops.
I feel so bad for the cops that do a really good job, because I do believe there are a lot of police officers out there that do a very good job, that care about their jobs, that think about these things, that check in with themselves, with their biases, that, that really do care. Because it is a bit of a thankless job. It's becoming more and more thankless. You are risking your life. There are some things about it. And it's these bad apples that just ruin it for everybody. Because there are a lot of good apples in there.
It's also the institution itself is corrupt, like the policing institutions, because, you go back in history and police departments and, as an institution, they started out as a way to support slavery, to make sure that slaves didn't escape, to make, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The LAPD used to recruit people from the Ku Klux Klan. Just its roots are so poisonous.
Yes.
That you can't blame the individual police all the time. And a lot of times, I'm sure that people go into policing with the best of intentions, but then they get corrupted by the institution.
Yeah. Feeling I can't change anything.
And they're pressured to do things. And I think I've had police officers tell me that a lot of times they believe the ends justify the means, because it's better to get this person off the street. Even if we know he didn't do this, we know he did all these other robberies. He's robbing old ladies' homes. We need to get him off the street. And so we're going to just drop these drugs in the back of his car.
Yeah.
So it's complicated.
Yeah. And I can see how right in that moment in time, you're getting all this pressure that justify, the ends mean, what is it? The ends justify the means. But as we can see very clearly, even though dropping drugs in the back of his car seems like the honorable or right thing to do, you can see that every single time you do that, now you are lying and you are corrupting and you are creating something, because that person knows those aren't their drugs.
Right.
Even though they knew they did all these other things.
Right.
They are still, they know they're being set up. So now how are they going to trust this institution? How is anybody that knows this person going to trust the institution? Right. All of it, like the ripple effects of these momentary choices and decisions that are made are huge. And so that's the thing. I don't know what needs to happen. I don't know if we all just need to slow down a little bit. Can we? And I think part of this is social media and the fact that we can communicate so quickly. I think the pressure gets ramped up even more to solve things, to figure things out.
Yeah, this case was under a lot of pressure. It's like we need to have this solved now, because this is making our city look bad. And what did they do? They ended up making their whole police department look bad.
They spent how much money prosecuting this guy?
Yeah.
And wasted tons of money and resources for all of this. All of it. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, highly
I'm all fired up.
Yes. Highly recommend if you haven't seen it already. So, thank you for joining us here. If you are interested in hearing more from us, we have a Patreon where you can get extra content. And we're if you're a Sister Wives listener, we're going to start putting some extra content discussing Christine's book on our Patreon. If you're not part of Patreon, we're going to put the first episode out free so you can see if you like it. And we do a weekly bonus episode there. You get all the episodes ad-free. We do a bonus monthly true crime and a monthly Ask Us Anything. And we are also on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, hello. And we're on all the social medias, Psych Legal Pop. Please give us a 5-star rating and review if you're so inclined. We would appreciate that. And we will see you soon.
Yes. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Hannah Berner from Giggly Squad. Have you ever put on a bra that makes you feel like a goddess? Prepare to be obsessed with the Dream Angels Wicked Bra from Victoria's Secret, the iconic brand behind the world's most comfortable bras. And I only wear the most comfortable bras. The bestseller features an innovative sling for perfect lift without padding, and the fit is chef's kiss. Awaken your inner goddess with new colors and super femme lace embroidery. Find out why this bra has thousands of 5-star reviews and counting. Shop it in stores and online at victoriasecret.com.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
You do it all. So why not get all the electrolytes? Hydrate better than water with new Gatorade Lower Sugar. Now with no artificial flavors, sweeteners, or colors. And 75% less sugar than regular Gatorade. New to the fridge. All the Gatorade electrolytes you love. Gatorade Lower Sugar. Is it in you? Now available nationwide.